2019's Call of Duty was announced to be a reboot of Modern Warfare. It came across as an odd choice. On the surface, it sounds completely unoriginal, which, to be honest, isn't the first for the Call of Duty franchise. On the other hand, Infinity Ward had their work cut out for them. As a remake of the most influential title in the series, the expectations couldn't be higher, and it would have been easy to disappoint fans of the original. They had to create a game that lived up to Call of Duty 4's legacy, but also different enough to avoid feeling like a lazy rehash, given the remaster of the original is just 3 years old at this point, which serves as another game the new reboot competes against. Does 2019's reboot live up to its name? Yes and no. Let's begin with the campaign. While Call of Duty 4's campaign was a rollercoaster ride of unforgettable set pieces, the gameplay was for the most part very linear, which, to be fair, was par for the course for its time. Linear sequences are still prevalent in the 2019 reboot's campaign, mostly due to the fact that Modern Warfare features many references and throwbacks to Call of Duty 4, going so far as to copy entire sequences from the original, with only the setting to distinguish the two. But the remake tries to spice things up by frequently diversifying the gameplay. There are a few vehicle sequences which could serve as an introduction to a few of the kill streaks in multiplayer. Some missions have significantly larger areas to explore, encouraging stealth to avoid getting outnumbered. There's even a sequence where stealth is mandatory because all your firepower and even your mobility is taken away. On the other hand, one mission literally has you climb up the stairs very slowly with no room to maneuver. This is the most literal on-the-rails sequence I've ever played, which isn't a problem since this is probably the most realistic segment of the game. Does the story fare as well? Yes and no. The characters are serviceable for the most part. They don't have the most interesting arcs, but the plot is easy to follow and does a good job of ferrying us from set piece to set piece. Voice acting is inconsistent between characters.
Is now compartmentalized.
What the hell does that mean?
Means you no longer have clearance, Colonel.
Those are my Marines. We need a QRF in there right now.
That's not advisable.
And that is not your call.
Colonel, Laswell.
The protagonists sound good enough.
You know he's gonna make you pay for this.
We will make them pay.
We'll be ready.
While the children are so poorly voiced that it is impossible to take their situation seriously.
I heard the bombs. I closed the windows, like you told me.
Thankfully, the sound design is uniformly excellent. I haven't yet found a gun that doesn't sound like an incredibly powerful killing machine. Well, maybe some of the smaller caliber handguns. For the most part though, the audio-visual feedback of firing guns and detonating explosives are the most satisfying aspects of Modern Warfare. This synergizes well with the recoil and reloading animations, which have a great sense of weight and force to them. The campaign draws inspiration from historical events, like the Benghazi incident and the events depicted in the 2012 film Argo. Modern Warfare substitutes the real locations and conflicts with fictional stand-ins. For instance, a big part of the narrative focuses on Russia invading and occupying a neighbouring country. You could interpret this as a reference to the Chechen conflicts or the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. However, the country being invaded in Modern Warfare is a fictional Urzikstan, which is considerably less immersive than the very real Azerbaijan featured in Call of Duty 4. To make matters worse, Urzikstan will immediately come across as unrealistic to anybody who's watched or read anything about the Soviet Union. Infinity Ward has deliberately made it as difficult as possible to place their fictional country on a map. But it's obvious that it borders Russia. The Russian occupation will be inexplicable otherwise. This means Urzikstan is either in the Caucasus or in Central Asia. However, the natives of this fictional nation speak Arabic. Why is this a problem? Russia does not border any country that speaks Arabic. No country in either the Caucasus or Central Asia speak Arabic. Infinity Ward could have used any language from the Caucasian, Turkic or even Persian families, and it would have been more authentic. Why Arabic? Because Call of Duty 4 used a generic Middle Eastern setting? It made sense there, unlike the remake. Speaking of things that don't make sense, Modern Warfare has also sparked controversy for misattributing a NATO-perpetrated incident to Russia, the highway of death. This controversy feels pointless and even forced, like the developers were just trying to be edgy and provocative to distract from the game's greater problems, of which there are many. The offhand manner the incident is used in the game just makes it feel like an unnecessary inclusion.
The highway of death. The Russians bombed it during the invasion, killing the people trying to escape.
The plot just throws it out there as the reason we can't use a certain road. Why couldn't the road be unusable because of a rock slide, or earthquake, or a pile-up caused by a sandstorm? This is far from the worst flaw of the campaign. That dubious honour goes to Modern Warfare's Always Online DRM that has ruined my experience more than once. My single-player session was rudely cut short as I was unceremoniously kicked back to the loading screen because connection to the Blizzard game server has been lost. At that point, the only thing I could do was quit to desktop. Why can't single-player be played offline? This is a staggering downgrade from Call of Duty World War II, which not only allows you to play the campaign offline, but also lets you play the multiplayer without connecting to the developer's servers. World War II allows you to host a local session where you can play against bots or even other players using LAN. Modern Warfare marks a disappointing return to anti-consumer practices, and we aren't just talking about the Always Online DRM. Sony and Activision have agreed to make one of the game's modes exclusive to the PS4 for an entire year, even while they continue to charge Xbox and PC players full price for a product that won't be complete until it's rendered irrelevant by the next Call of Duty. Since Activision won't provide Xbox and PC gamers the complete product they're paying for, they should only be charged for the incomplete product they receive. In other words, Modern Warfare should be cheaper on the Xbox and PC, like Black Ops 4's Battle Edition, which excludes zombies for a reduced price. This is what Modern Warfare is on the PC, a Battle Edition without the discount. This is much worse than any Epic exclusivity deal, though Epic pays third-party developers to take their games off competing launchers. PC players still get to play the complete game if they can stomach paying Epic and using their launcher. In the case of Modern Warfare, though, Sony has had Activision withhold a portion of the game for a whole year. I don't get why Sony is going out of their way to antagonise players on other platforms. They have a range of excellent first-party exclusives that should be enough incentive to purchase a PlayStation. Exclusives that developers would like to bring to the PC if Sony would allow it. But of course, they don't. Sony loyalists would argue the company has no reason to port the exclusives to a platform they don't profit from. They could take a cue from their competitors. Microsoft has been porting Xbox exclusives to the PC in recent years, and they aren't doing it to be charitable. If it's lucrative enough for Microsoft, Sony could find a way to profit from it. Sadly, Sony is going the other way, paying publishers to hobble the product delivered to players on other platforms. Do they have so little confidence in their own exclusives? Either way, this should be a deal breaker for Modern Warfare on the Xbox and PC. Buying this game despite these anti-consumer practices sends an undesirable message to Activision. There are no consequences to delivering a deliberately incomplete product. The Always Online requirement might not bother you if you're only interested in Modern Warfare's co-op or multiplayer. Ideally, it would bother you considering it's a step down from World War II, which allowed you to play offline, even with other players with LAN or virtual networks that emulated LAN. However, this was the exception that bucked the trend. Modern Warfare is another disappointing step in the industry's assault on consumer rights, depriving players control over their access to the product they purchase. Is the multiplayer fun enough to consider overlooking these encroachments? Yes, if you fancy camping in a corner with a shotgun or the M4 assault rifle. If you prefer a more mobile playstyle though, Modern Warfare can be one of the most frustrating gaming experiences in recent times. The map design may be to blame. The amorphous layout of most maps render runners vulnerable to gunfire from all angles. Some maps are worse than others. The Piccadilly map may be the worst by far. You'll be gunned down in seconds if you dare do anything besides sit motionless in a corner, meaning it's suicide to even attempt to push the objective in modes that aren't team deathmatch. In contrast, the 3-lane maps in earlier games limited the number of directions you could be shot from, allowing you to move while retaining some ability to counterfire. You can't do this in Modern Warfare because you can be shot from anywhere. You can't both shoot the enemy in front of you and return fire to the camper shooting you from behind. Some modes are worse than others. Search and Destroy, Cyber Attack and Headquarters require you to move to the objectives, though you can camp if you get there first. Team Deathmatch rewards you for camping in any corner, while Domination incentivizes you to camp near the objectives, while camping near high-traffic choke points ensures a regular supply of targets. Runners also get an idea of where they can expect to be ambushed. This is also the case in Ground War, which is Modern Warfare's take on Battlefield's Conquest. You join a squad of 4 and capture stationary points on a massive map. Unlike Battlefield, you can't do much with your squad besides spawning on them, but not if they're in combat. You can also spawn on captured points, so long as your team controls them. The spawn system still needs some work. You will occasionally die seconds after you spawn as the game drops you directly in the line of fire. On the other hand, you might want to spawn on the base if you want to hop in an armoured vehicle. That said, nothing is safer or more effective than camping in a corner after planting a claymore to cover the entrance. You never feel safe when you spawn in Modern Warfare, particularly in ground war. If the game drops you on open ground, running to cover is often a dangerous gauntlet and you will be shot by snipers coming so far away you can never hope to see them in time. Modern Warfare does try to make this easier by having their scopes glint when they're zoomed in, another feature Battlefield players will find familiar. Muzzle velocity is another variable common to both games, though this isn't quite as big a factor in Modern Warfare as it is in Battlefield, meaning snipers have a significantly better shot at hitting you in Modern Warfare than they do in Battlefield. Modern Warfare hasn't quite reached parity with Battlefield yet. Ground war is merely a pale imitation. Vehicles cannot use first-person cameras, cannot zoom in and cannot be repaired. There is no destructibility, meaning your vehicle will bounce off objects like traffic lights. The weapon balance is broken, as you can count on one hand the number of viable weapons. The dual-chamber 725 shotgun dominates at close and mid-ranges, even at distances you might assume it loses at. You will lose gunfights only if there are 3 or more enemies that are sticking close enough so the third can't move in while you're reloading. At mid to long ranges, the M4 assault rifle takes over, though you can still excel at point-blank ranges unless you run into a 725 wielder. Infinity Ward has noticed and has nerfed these weapons in one of the first balance updates, though nerfs do sting a bit if you spent time to grind attachments for those weapons. You didn't need to unlock anything for the 725 to exploit its insane killing power, but the M4 rifle will need an optical sight at the very least. Like all Call of Duties, Modern Warfare saddles players with a progression system that locks most guns and attachments behind an XP requirement. You grind to level up to unlock guns, and kill enemies with the gun to unlock attachments for it. If the grind bothers you, you might like the 2v2 mode, Gunfight, which gives you a random assortment of weapons, attachments and explosives. You are tasked with killing the 2 players on the enemy team. If they're still alive when the time runs out, an objective will spawn on the map. The team that captures the objective wins. The objective can be captured in a couple of seconds, so you'll want to rush to it before the enemy does, or establish a line of sight on it to shoot the enemy that tries to capture it. Gunfight is one of the most intense and exciting experiences in Modern Warfare. The icing on the cake is the reward you get for completing gunfights, which includes unlocking attachments for the guns that force you to use. Modern Warfare features another way to customize your weapons: blueprints. Blueprints are a specific combination of attachments for guns and attachments you may or may not have unlocked yet. You acquire blueprints by completing multiplayer missions, which are a series of challenges you complete in succession. You can only work on one stage of the mission at a time. To demonstrate what this means, let's use the boot camp mission as an example. While this seems to be a deliberate restriction for multi-step missions, daily challenges also seem to be affected. You can carry out your daily challenges many times over, and the game won't recognize it or give you your XP. The XP boost tokens have the opposite problem. These count down even while you're in matchmaking. I lost a considerable portion of my boost this way. The game seems to take longer to find matches than in the beta. It feels like matchmaking prioritizes skill over latency, much more than the beta did, as my ping was significantly higher than it was in the beta. Sadly, this was the least of Modern Warfare's failings. Matches would often get cut short because of server issues. I'd get kicked to the loading screen before the match could conclude, losing all progress in the process. The only option you're given is to quit to desktop. Occasionally, the game will do it for you, crashing with fatal errors like DirectX encountered an unrecoverable error. At this point, you could try to restart the game, though success isn't guaranteed. The game would often refuse to load the main menu and crash to desktop seconds after launch. I'd encountered these issues in the beta and hoped the developers would have fixed them before launch. But I was wrong. Crashes are just the severest type of instability that made it to the launch. The game freezes for several seconds if you alt-tab into or out of it. Stutters are more common in single-player than multiplayer, though they will occasionally cause you to lose firefights in PvP. The worst stutters are most frequently felt while watching the campaign's cutscenes, as even one stutter can cause lip-syncing to become desynchronized. This appears to be caused by the game running out of GPU memory, as the VRAM usage drops by a couple of gigabytes as the stutter subsides. VRAM shouldn't be an issue on the 1080 Ti I'm using. 11GB should be plenty, even at 1440p. Are the textures detailed enough to justify this unprecedented VRAM usage? No. That doesn't mean the textures are bad. They just don't look like the kind of textures that need more than 10 or even 6GB of VRAM. Modern Warfare looks good and performs well enough, considering my 1080 Ti max 1440p at 70 to 80 frames a second on the large ground war maps and 80 to 100 frames on smaller traditional modes like Team Deathmatch. This performance does fall short if you're comparing Modern Warfare to its competition. Battlefield 5's new Pacific maps are considerably larger than Modern Warfare's biggest maps and feature better lighting, textures and particle effects. Despite its better visuals, Battlefield 5 stays well above 100 frames, even when all the settings are maxed at 1440p, with the only exception being ray tracing, which is disabled in both games anyway. This is not a huge difference in performance, but a noticeable one. Modern Warfare does have its moments though, visually speaking. The thermal scope is the best implementation I've ever seen in gaming, and should be an inspiration for other developers. The colours look incredibly realistic, going by the infrared cameras I've seen on science channels, and I love how your peripheral vision does not disappear or even change while you're zoomed in. This is true to an extent for all scopes. Your peripheral vision isn't magnified to the same degree when you aim down your scope. This effect has been seen in other games like Rising Storm Vietnam, but Modern Warfare does it without any perceivable performance hit. An admirable implementation, which could also be said of its overlay. You don't need a utility like MSI Afterburner or Reaver Tuner statistics server to monitor your performance, as the game offers an overlay that displays its frame rate, GPU temperature and processing times for your CPU and GPU, which can help identify the bottleneck in your machine. In my case, the bottleneck was my 1080 Ti, which is better than the alternative. The draw distance has improved from the beta, as pop-in is not nearly as noticeable as it once was. You can still find 2D sprites turning into 3D trees when you zoom in, but this doesn't affect gameplay. You can stand on top of a towering skyscraper and still spot enemies on the other side of the map, though it becomes easier if you use your GPU's sharpening filter. The biggest maps are not in multiplayer, but the co-op mode. These involve you completing a series of objectives, while fending off an insurmountable horde of enemies that never lets up no matter how many you kill. Completed your objective against all odds? Run half a mile across the map to the next objective and try not to die to the hailstorm of bullets and explosive projectiles which you can do nothing about. If you get downed, your teammates have a short window of time to revive you. If everyone on your team dies and there is no one left to revive anyone, you lose the mission and cannot proceed without starting over. Winning feels impossible, even with close cooperation, but perhaps players who appreciate a challenge might have fun here. Sadly, they won't get to try Modern Warfare's other co-op mode, Survival, unless they have a PS4. This exclusivity is a poster child of anti-consumer agreements. This does not benefit players on any platform, not even PlayStation users. In fact, the exclusivity by definition makes them lose out on crossplay. PlayStation players don't get to play with friends on other platforms and may have to wait longer to find a match because the game cannot draw on the larger pool of players on Xbox and PCs. This doesn't matter to Activision or Infinity Ward. They will get away with this as long as people keep buying their games. It feels like every year Activision pushes the boundaries to test what they can and can't get away with, until they cross that inevitable line where their consumers say enough is enough. But sadly, the community puts up with it every time. This is how Call of Duty went from World War II's loot box supply drops to Black Ops 4, a game that didn't have a campaign but did try to sell a red dot for real-world money, to Modern Warfare, a game with a single-player campaign that can't be played offline, a game that won't be complete on 2 platforms for a whole year, at which point the community will have moved on to the next Call of Duty. Despite all of this, Activision still has the nerve to charge Xbox and PC gamers full price for a product they've deliberately delivered unfinished for the entirety of its life cycle. Sure, the community has raised a stink over these despicable practices, but controversy achieves nothing without a boycott. If you buy a game, you support the company that made it and encourage them to stick to it or even double down on their practices. This is why I don't recommend spending any money on this game. And that's it for our Modern Warfare review. There is more content like this in the way, so please subscribe, press the bell button and select all notifications. YouTube won't notify you of new uploads unless you select all. If you like this video, please share it, because YouTube won't.